A new study has found that eating healthily and exercising regularly can reduce the risk of gestational diabetes by up to 90%. Researchers in Singapore and the US followed up with more than 4,200 women over 28 years old. For more, we are joined by Professor Zhang Cuilin, Director of the Global Center for Asian Women's Health at NUS.
Professor, in this study, you found up to 1 in 5 pregnant women possibly being at risk. Based on your other figures and what is considered base or textbook, would you consider it prevalent here? And if that is so, why is that so?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for having me here tonight. Yes, in general, it is true GDM is more common and prevalent among Asian women than other risk ethnicity groups. But why? The exact reason behind this, unfortunately, remains unknown. It can be due to both genetic and environmental factors and the interactions of them. In fact, there are several ongoing studies, including those from our team at NUS Yong School of Medicine, are investigating the unique phenotypes of GDM among Singapore women. So hope findings from those studies can help us better address the why question, why Singapore women have such a high risk for gestational diabetes.
What did the research show, Professor, about how at-risk women can reduce their risks?
So we show in our study, that even though these women are at high risk for type 2 diabetes later in their life, adopting a healthy diet and lifestyle can lower up to, as you mentioned, almost 90% risk of type 2 diabetes, and even alleviate the high genetic risk of type 2 diabetes. So as we all know, as you mentioned, it is always hard to lose weight. Our data also demonstrate that those who are overweight may also benefit from adopting these healthful lifestyle practices after their GDM complicated pregnancies. So this is really hopeful, encouraging message.
Professor, that said, these findings are not new. I mean, most of us would know being overweight from a very early age increases your risk of diabetes anyway, regardless of whether or not you are pregnant. Earlier you said how your study can be used to contribute to helping how we manage diabetes here in Singapore. How precisely will your study be able to do that, not just with pregnant women, but diabetes for all people in Singapore?
So our study actually, what is unique about our study? Because our study is kind of focused on high-risk women with a history of gestational diabetes. They had an exceptional high risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And in Singapore, the rate of gestational diabetes is quite high, 20% among pregnant women. So I think our message kind of really can help women who have gestational diabetes in Singapore to remain hopeful about adapting healthy diet and lifestyle factors to reduce their future risk for type 2 diabetes. Because even though we have known this among general population, but we don't know exactly among women at high risk how helpful this healthful diet and lifestyle factor could be.
Professor, why has there been such a lack of long-term and in-depth studies locally on gestational diabetes and its impact on Asians, especially Singapore women who are high at risk? And is there a sense that stakeholders now need to play catch-up to plug this gap?
That is a great question. That is also a tough question. So in January, actually, such in-depth studies are limited, lacking not just in Singapore or in Asia, but also in most of other countries. Our study, to the best of our knowledge, is the first that has such long-term, in-depth investigation of lifelong health conditions for GDM women. So while limited studies in Singapore, So I just recently joined Singapore research communities. I may be not in the best position to comment on this than other local experts, but I'm aware of active research programs led by scholars from NUS Yong School of Medicine on research for GDM based on several local birth cohorts, such as Gusto study, Espresso. So for instance, Gusto study, initiated and led by Professor Yapsen Chong, was the first to identify high prevalence of GDM in Singapore at approximately 20% rate, almost double what was thought to be. So this data actually was published in 2014. So my understanding is that long-term follow-up of these women is under the radar of future research endeavors for GDM and type 2 diabetes. It takes time and lots of resources and funding support to follow up these women and set up long-term follow-up cohorts. So in fact, actually, we just discussed this early this week. So hopefully with the right support, we can launch these studies soon. Hope I answer your questions.
Oh, you most certainly did. Thank you so much for that. Professor Zhang Cuilin from the NUS Yong School of Medicine.